Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and I'm here today with Hayden, and we're going to be talking about the Warhammer World Championship. How you doing today, Hayden?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about all these super unique lists today. So,
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Yeah, I'm super stoked, man, because not only are we going to be seeing quite a good showing of Aeldari lists in the World Championships, but we're also going to be seeing some really unique and awesome play styles that I don't think any of you guys out there have seen before. And this is shaping up to be quite the fantastic World Championship, honestly. And I have to say, I think Aeldari have a good chance of taking the W, or at least podiuming them, in this event. What do you think about that?
yeah, so first of all, I love like how unique all these lists are, and especially like the state of the game is actually like super balanced. So, I think a lot of armies have a good chance of winning. Obviously, I hope Eldar. But the other thing is there's basically in the World Championship, you have the champions bracket, which I'm believe only 16 players get in. So you have to kind of win your first four games, or
Yeah, I think that's correct, right? You have to.
there'll still be a second bracket for all the other people that don't win those. That can also like you can also like be first place of the world bracket, and like, even if you don't get into the champions bracket, so there's like a lot of prizes that you can win and placings as well, because this is like a there's 275 people, right?
Yeah, it's massive. We got 275 players. Most of the players are Necrons players, which is interesting. Which is 30 Necrons players, which I think has a little bit to do with maybe Hypercrypt Legion, but I could be wrong there. We have a lot of Astra Militarum because of their recent buffs, and of course the dreaded Tempestus Achillans and all the tanks that they can take and stuff like that. And then we have, Blood Angels, Tau, Adeptus Sororitas, Sisters of Battle, Bolter Bitches, of course, and Tyranids. And then we have the Aeldari, the best faction in the game, bringing up number 13. So we have 13 Aeldari players out there rocking the best faction in the game. And let's go and take a look at the lists. And you, my friend, are taking something absolutely spectacular. So when we get to your list, we're going to go ahead and take it for a look, because it is one of the best lists I have seen in a while. So let's go and take a look at this. You can see what's on my screen here.
Yeah.
This is kind of the breakdown of the Aeldari players and their lists that are going to be going to Worlds. And Worlds is coming up, guys. It's really close. So I'm hoping to post this video really quick for you guys before the event, so you can kind of get a good idea of who's going to be there and what they're going to be taking. But this first list here, and I hope I don't mispronounce his name, but Balzaz Blasaki, I think, or Blasowski.
Yeah,
And he's
hungry player.
Hungarian player, yeah, of course. As a as a stupid American, I have no idea how to pronounce some people's names. But we're looking at this here, and it's a triple brick list. And if you guys out there don't know, triple brick is characterized by Avatar of Cain, big troop with your rain in it, and Wraith Guard usually. So, what do you think about this list? What do you think about the triple brick, Hayden?
Honestly, super strong. Really a basic Eldar list.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super strong. I like the list, but the only thing I would say is he only has 4 scoring units here. Which I guess we can include this Death Jester in the scoring units category. Um,
Right.
but I'm a little worried about his secondaries. And Wraithguard are great, but there's a lot of things that we have like that are popular at this tournament that can kind of kill Wraithguard. Like my main problem is Blood Angels or like Space Wolves, Black Templars, World Eaters, these crazy melee armies that can unfortunately just like pick up Wraithguard.
Mm-hmm.
Um so that is a little tough. The other bricks, the troop's really hard to kill. And then the Guardian, or not the Guardians, the I mean the Avatar Kane's really hard to kill as well, especially because he's got that Farseer in there to give it -1 to wound.
Mhm.
He has these Howling Banshees in here though, which should save him from those like big charges, right?
Yep.
Because if you put the Howling Banshees either right next to this troop or the Wraith Guard, and I actually see a couple other Eldar players doing a similar thing, where they like will put them kind of near the brick so they can heroically intervene. Now that heroic intervention is one command point, it's a lot better.
Right.
So you can kind of protect your troops from getting just picked up by melee.
Absolutely. And it's funny because this is exactly what I was talking about when I saw the Banshees get reduced to 70 points and then the change to heroic intervention. I was telling people like, hey guys, like Howling Banshees, you might want to look at them again because, they're a really good defensive unit. And they have some versatility into shooting factions as well. I would even say factions like Imperial Guard, if you can kind of position them correctly so they don't get overwatched, at tying up big stuff, preventing them from moving because they have such a long charge range. So
That's what I've always done with them. I
yeah,
totally agree.
absolutely. Like they're a versatile unit, and I definitely understand the include here. But yeah, I agree. I think my biggest problem with triple brick lists is the lack of secondary scoring. It just, I just think some armies like, we were just talking about Necrons, they can easily pick up swooping hawks, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
super easily with the ability to just pick up 3 units, put them wherever you want. You could totally annihilate the Eldar secondary scoring, and that's going to be hard to kind of score points on. So
Yeah, he just has. I mean, even if we look at this list, the Rangers and the Howling Banshees, they're going to be there for screening, really. I mean, I wouldn't imagine they survive past like turn 2 or 3. The
right,
Swooping Hawks, he's going to have to be very careful with these guys living because, I mean, he's grabbing like if he's grabbing Sabotage, he's not going to be able to get that.
right,
If he's doing, he could get teleport homers. Maybe if you want like corners or containment, that's going to be hard. He has a lot of characters as well. I would probably say that he doesn't. It would be nice to get rid of the Vizark and put in another scoring unit. The Vizark is great, but I mean, he has these Howling Banshees there to stop that
right.
charge,
You
right?
have the fights first for that, yeah.
And
So
I'm
even
believing the Harlequins don't get the +1 to wound when they get charged, even if they have fights first. No.
if they get charged, no, they don't get the +1 to wound.
Because that's the big thing about the Harlequin brick is it hits really hard in combat, but if you charge it, you won't have to worry about getting hit back, even if it has fights first, because
Right,
they're only strength 4, right?
right. I think if you heroically intervene, you'll get it. Like you'll get the +1 because you're technically charging, but yeah, you're
Yeah,
not going to
yeah.
get it
The
if
heroic
you're
intervention,
charged.
you will. You're right.
Yeah, and I mean any good player, by the way, will notice that and play around it, right?
Of course, it's actually like the heroic intervention thing probably won't even happen, but it's a preventative measure to like force the player to play around it. That's
Absolutely.
usually what happens with those types of things, right?
Yeah, I mean this list is just a control list under a different name, right? I mean it's
Yeah.
it's it's harkening back to the old control lists that we saw in the beginning of the edition. It's just using different units to achieve the same thing. So I really like this list. It
It
is
is a very cookie cutter. It's
yes,
still good, but it is a cookie
absolutely,
cutter Eldar list.
absolutely. It's one of
Um,
the more meta Eldar lists. But interestingly enough, it's the only list that is just cookie cutter, right? I haven't seen a lot of other quote unquote cookie cutter
I don't think
lists.
there are any other Wraith bricks, are there? Maybe one other
I
list has a Wraith brick?
I don't think so. I think this is the only one, but I'll have to double check on that. I'm not quite sure. Now, here's a really interesting list. A list by Charles Barber. Werewolf Grandmas with Knives, I guess is the name of it. Which is
Charles Barber,
it's kind
this
of
is the
funny.
one with like a billion transports, right?
Yes, this guy
I love this
is
list.
a trollolol. I mean, really, he has a list that is revolving around having a maximum amount of transports, and a lot of players will look at this and say, "Oh, this guy's just trolling," obviously. But on closer inspection, I don't think it's actually a troll. I think it's a very clever use of transports and of the lower cost of transports like wave serpents and stuff like that, and of Kabbalite warriors to achieve something that is more along the lines of a list that wants to kind of shut opponents out from moving across the board as they want to. And that has to do with two things. One, the size of the wave serpent. being a bigger model and being able to kind of lock down potential movement lanes. And two, having the sticky objectives. So so let's talk about the list and then I'll kind of go into it, because all of the Wave Serpents have Cobblite Warriors in them. And
Yeah,
they're
they split them up.
he's using the Venoms to split these Cobbleites up. So if you look at the list, he has Yvraine because he has to. I don't think she would be in the list if he didn't have to have her. But we have 6 Wave Serpents, Bright Lances, of course, on all of them, Shuriken Cannons. We have 3 Vipers for, I guess, extra denial and,
Anti-tank, removing
yeah,
the cover. Yeah.
absolutely. And then we have the Coblite Warriors. We have 4 units of these, I believe. Yeah, so
Yeah.
then
So that would
4
make 8.
Venoms as well. So he's splitting those up so he can fit all the Coblite Warriors, Mandrakes, and I guess your Vrain in those transports so they're not automatically destroyed. And so what you get out of this list, and he has 2 Reavers because they're just good at scoring secondaries and, stuff like that.
3 Reavers.
3 Reavers.
And they also have, the other thing is they have Heat Lances, which
Yep.
are extra anti-tank.
Yep, and they're getting the reroll to hit and wound because of the detachment bonus. So this list is basically just move blocking enemies, making it really hard for them to get on objectives in the first place, taking out all the key threats, and presenting a bunch of stuff that a lot of opponents are just not going to have the tools to deal with, right? I mean, there's not a lot of armies out there that can shut down 6 Wave Serpents in 3 turns.
And 4 Venoms.
Right.
Yeah, very hard.
Absolutely, especially with all the sticky, and you have to understand everything is sticky, basically, right? So you can move a Wave Serpent on an objective, stickify it, and then move on, move block something, and maybe screen your opponent out from getting to that objective with other models, and they're not going to have an easy time being able to take those objectives away from you.
Very strong going first list, I'd say.
Yes.
Because if it's going second, I'm wondering, can you even hide this much shit in your deployment zone?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
You'll get shot, right?
You'll get shot to death. I think the only thing that might save them is the fact that Venoms have
tanks.
Deep Strike. I mean, yeah, and there's too many things,
the Venoms
right?
do have Deep Strike.
So he can kind of protect, but I mean, I don't even know if you want to do that. I think really the move here is if you go second, you're probably going to lose a couple Serpents, and you're just going to have to deal with it, and that's about it. Maybe strike back from there,
I was really worried going into this tournament that a lot of people would vehicle spam exactly like this. And so you see a lot of people running vehicle spam. Like, I think in my pod, like, even the people that are playing Blood Angels and Space Wolves have like 5 or 6 vehicles, right? Which is surprising. But like, not everybody brought enough anti-tank to deal with like this amount of tanks, right?
Right.
Like, this is a lot. You can't just like have 2 or 3 dedicated anti-tank units and expect to kill all this stuff.
Right.
Especially because he's getting 4 Dark Lances, the 6 Bright Lances that have Twin Link, then the 3 more Bright Lances, and then he's also got the Heat Lances. I mean, he's getting like 20-ish Bright Lance equivalent shots, and then he's got the blasters. A lot of anti-tank in this list already.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has a copious amount. And don't also underestimate the Wave Serpent's ability to deal mortal wounds.
Yeah, the shield.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you only have 1 Wave Serpent in your list, it's not really a big deal, but when you have 6 of them, that's going to be 5d6 mortal wound, or 5d3, mortal wounds, basically, because you'll probably fail one of them, right, on average dice, but, 5d3, that's 10 mortal wounds. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's going to kill something else on the battlefield.
Good for Satans, especially. Satans or like an Avatar.
Oh, absolutely. Really helps with those.
And I believe Cabalites have grenades, right?
They do. I think
so you could pair that with grenades.
I think half of them have grenades, because I think the leader of the Cobalite unit has the
leader, yeah.
launcher.
So it would only be the leader, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even so, that's still pretty good. So
yeah, this is a great list.
Really good list. I know a lot of people think it's troll, but I actually think it's clever, and I wish him luck in the tournament. I hope he does well. And it would be funny to see one of these games with this list live streamed. I'd really like to see that. Oh, man. Okay, so our next list is David Perales, and he has what looks like a more standard Eldari list, Rising of the Phoenix. But of course, he's bringing things like the Solitaire, and I love that he's bringing the Solitaire because the Solitaire is one of my favorite models recently. You know, with the changes to Heroic Intervention, it's a really strong Heroic Intervention unit. It's also a really good assassin. I semi recently had a game against Thousand Suns where I was able to bum rush into, blitz into a unit of Rubric Marines, destroy all the Rubric Marines, and then also kill with whatever leftover wounds I had, kill the Exalted Sorcerer in the unit. He just hits super hard. He's really good. And he's a good defensive model too. He has Fuegan, which of course, as we know, is like a pretty good staple in competitive play as far as, his power. I know you guys probably know what he does out there. Farseer, Avatar of Cain, Autarch Wayleaper, Guardian Defenders, of course. We also have Double Falcon with Fire Dragons in it, which you know how I love the Falcon. It's a great model. Lots of Brightlands shots. Fire Dragons are really good into, Terminator equivalents and also vehicles, especially with the rerolls. Now, the one thing I just want to point out real quick, if you'll allow me, Hayden, is
Yeah.
Shining Spears. Shining Spears.
They're actually really
They're
good. I was like looking to put
yes.
them in my list, to be honest. I couldn't find a place to put them, but
Yeah, I think your list probably just can't fit them, honestly, but they're good, guys. I know some of you out there will probably comment on this video. Shining Spears suck. It's only because he's a really good player that he's, using these guys. I have to say, I've used them in a couple games. I've used them actually more than once, but I used them when they were 120 points and 100 points respectively, and they weren't good for the points then. But I always found that they could do something in the game, and now at 90 points, they're looking great. They're absolutely looking great. They're a really good unit if you need something semi-durable to score on things like Sabotage, right? And especially if you're looking at things like, if you're looking at Hypercrypt Legion, that can just pick up a unit, pop it next to your unit that's trying to sabotage, and completely wipe out your Swooping Hawks or Warp Spiders, they're going to have a harder time with Shining Spears.
yeah, I think actually Shining Spears are a better equivalent to Swooping Hawks in most cases now because of their similar points, and Shining Spears have close to the same amount of movement that you can get with Swooping Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite, but they move very fast, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're just a lot tougher, which is the
Absolutely.
big thing. And they also have the added benefit of like move blocking, right? Which is
Right.
super useful against melee armies.
Absolutely. Those big bases are really useful for move blocking. They do good damage into units as well, decent damage into Marine types.
Yeah,
They're
like Space
just,
Marines.
yeah, like regular Space Marines. If you need them to kill a regular Space Marine squad, they can. Swooping Hawks cannot do that. You can't expect that out of a squad of Swooping Hawks, but you can out of a unit of Shining Spears for just 5 more points. So, honestly, I think they're a really good unit. I think they're a really good flex option for a number of the missions or secret objectives or whatever. Not secret objectives, excuse me. Secondary missions, that you might draw over the course of the game. They're just a really solid unit. He also has a Hornet, which I find is kind of interesting. I never really thought I'd see the Hornet in competitive play again, but there you
Yeah,
go.
they all out. I maybe he didn't have quite enough points for a Warwalker. I think Warwalkers are just better than I don't know. He's at 2,000, right? I
He's
don't.
at
No.
1990
Yeah.
according to this.
Right. So I guess he just made the executive decision to take a Hornet instead.
Yeah.
I guess maybe he's going for the Mortal Wounds because he doesn't really have, unlike the other list we just looked at, a lot any like good easy Mortal Wound spam to deal with these Satans
Right.
that are so prevalent. So that could be probably why he decided to take it.
Absolutely. And the cool thing you can do with the Hornet actually is you can move it over once, deal mortal wounds, fire and fade, deal mortal wounds again.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
very good.
yeah, it's actually pretty decent at dealing mortal wounds. So, a lot of people may just see the Hornet as inferior to the Warwalker in a lot of cases, but, in cases where you already have the role of the Warwalker covered, like if you look at his list, right, he already has that role covered. Like he has 2 Falcons,
Yeah,
right?
he can do that anti tank.
Right. But what he doesn't have, like you said, is mortals. He can throw a grenade with fire dragons, but that's sometimes not enough. So when you're doing the math and you're trying to figure out, okay, can I actually kill a Satan Shard in one turn? Because that's really what you need to do, right? A Hornet can actually do it in conjunction with Fire Dragons and grenades, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Fire Dragons, Falcon, Hornet, dead Satan Shard. And I've killed Satan Shards with Fire Dragons
Yeah,
before.
you need the Melta. I couldn't go without taking at least one or two Melta things on my list, man.
Yeah, the Melter really helps. And it's good against other stuff too. It's good against like the Avatar of Cain if you're going against another Eldar player, or the Incarn, or anything with half damage. Really, it's really good at taking down. And of course, we see striking scorpions in the list too, which are great. We see swooping hawks. We see a warwalker, so he does have one warwalker in the list, and we see warp spiders. So all pretty good selections here.
He has his
And
scoring covered very well.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Warp Spiders are really good at scoring objectives. I mean, obviously they've been good all edition at it. Swooping Hawks are really good too. I'm finding myself just using one unit. I feel like in most cases one unit's enough. I typically don't like to throw Swooping Hawks on a thing like Sabotage, so I usually try to do that with some other type of model because of what we were just talking about earlier. They're kind of fragile. If somebody can
Yeah,
get around you, shoot them, and kill them, it's a waste of the unit. But there's a lot of
exactly.
units that can do it, like Shining Spears, which is a
Yeah,
unit
well,
that
I mean, even the Hornet
yeah.
could do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Hornet's a little bit more durable than people give it credit for. I believe it's toughness 7 and it has 8 wounds. So it's a little bit more durable than people think, especially against small arms fire. Okay. Now,
Absolutely.
this, my friend, is going to be your list. Of course, the mighty Scorpion list. So,
Yes, don't Legends the Scorpion.
yeah, don't Legends of Scorpion, guys. Hopefully, hey, I'm praying to Isha that they don't Legends that. I'm really hoping. I feel like it's a super heavy tank. They shouldn't Legends it. It should be Imperial Armor. Like, everybody's getting their apocalyptic type units that are staying, so why would they Legends it, right? But
I don't know. I give it a 50-50. I don't trust
50-50.
GW like
Yeah,
that.
it's really a coin flip, isn't it? Well, okay, so why don't you go ahead and run us through the list? I don't want to talk about the list too much. I want to let you do the talking because it's your list. But
All right.
how did you come up with this kind of idea, and how much success have you had with it?
I always really love the Scorpion, even back in 7th edition. So it's quite, in my opinion, it's quite good this edition. But we'll go over. So my characters, are pretty obvious. The Avatar is, I mean, he's just great, man. You can see most of the Eldar players are running the Avatar. Even for all his points nerfs. The Farseer, obviously, I'm surprised that some people aren't running a Farseer, but that means they're just gonna, not worry about their army rule.
Right.
But the Farseer, the main thing I like about the Farseer and why I didn't take the Jetseer is because I need the -1 to wound. The -1 to wound combos with the Scorpion really well. It
Mm,
makes it nigh impossible to kill. Unless you've got things that are like anti-vehicle,
hmm
like with that rule, it's like you're shooting. If it's strength 12, you're still going to be wounding me on 4s. If it's anything other than strength 11, like under strength 11, then it's going to be wounding me on 6s. So
Right.
it makes it really hard to kill. And then any of those high strength stuff, usually they're not a lot of shots. So, and you can see I have Eldrad there for the extra Fate Dice, and I also have a Guardian Defender squad. So I have that Fate Dice there to just block all those like single shot Bright Lances that would maybe, hit or wound the Scorpion or the Avatar. The Avatar is another guy that eats Fate Dice. They both eat so much Fate Dice because the Avatar with his Overwatch and just passing those saves. I really lean on Fate Dice with this
hmm
army quite a lot, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the inclusion of Eldrad in this list. It's not a model you would typically pick in an Eldar list just because of, I mean, he's kind of expensive.
He's a little expensive, yeah.
Yeah, but in this list it makes sense, and it actually makes perfect sense because of what you just said. The list eats a lot of fate dice. You have two big things that really need fate dice to operate effectively, and so you need those extra three. And probably to a lesser extent, you probably also need something to be able to chain branching fates off of, because I
That
believe
is
that's
another
still a
big
thing.
thing that I
Yeah.
use a lot, actually.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
typically I have the Avatar and the Scorpion on two different sides of the board.
Hmm.
So I have Eldrad near one, Farseer near another.
Right.
So I can use Branching Fates. The other big thing with Eldrad is precision. A precision gun that does D6 damage. I find it comes in handy a lot, actually.
Wow.
Because I don't really see Illic is kind of too expensive now.
Right.
That squad is just too expensive. But like, if your enemy fails their whatever their invul is, then that's just that character's dead.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, unless they have like half damage or something like the Gravis captains.
Right. Yeah, I really
So
like
that comes in
Eldrad for
handy.
that. Yeah, I've killed characters with them before, and then back when they didn't nerf Phantasm, I liked to put Eldrad in reserve, pop him out, kill a character, then just like Phantasm behind a wall, cheekily. But Eldrad's great. He's great. He's a little overpriced in my opinion, but he's still good, and his mind war can really catch people off guard. So I think you have something going there, and especially against armies like Necrons, armies like Blood Angels. They're going to be relying on their characters to do a lot of the buffing of their army, and being able to take those characters out like no problem is going to, I think, come in handy for you.
Yeah. Another Eldrad, see, this is why I run him. His +1 to wound is very, very good with my army because I have a ton of strength 12 weapons. And I just routinely, at least where I play, right? There's a lot of people like running like great unclean ones. Like I think Russes are T12. Land Raiders are another big thing that I kind of made sure that I would be able to one turn a Land Raider.
Right.
With this list, I mean, like I don't want to wound on 4s with my Bright Lances. I
Hmm.
want to wound on 3s with my big tank and my Avatar. I want to be wounding on 2s. If we've got Space Marine, like big Space Marine bricks, you can throw that +1 to wound on there and then hit him with Warp Spiders and wound him on 3s. I played an Admech player and he had just so many infantry, and I just threw the +1 to wound on his Ruststrucker squad, and now I'm wounding him on 2s.
Ooh, nice. Nice.
The +1 to wound is actually comes in handy quite a lot
Yeah,
just
Doom is
because
a
of the
good
break
ability.
points.
Oh, absolutely. Doom is a great ability. And I've noticed that, yeah, your list does benefit a lot from Doom. I'd even say something like Storm Guardians can help Storm Guardians hit a lot harder.
Yeah, with the flamethrowers, the
Absolutely.
meltas is another thing.
Yeah.
He really helps his own unit quite a lot. So
He's going to be what, typically joining Storm Guardians?
I usually put him with the Storm Guardians, and I usually put the Farseer with the Guardian Defenders. Sometimes I don't if they have like really stupid, like deep striking units that can probably just pick up my Guardians in one go.
Hmm.
But other than that, yeah, I usually do that. Um, yeah, I don't think I really put Eldrad with the Guardian Defenders that often.
Yeah,
So
it's probably not a good play. I just because the line of sight's not there. You need line of sight for Mind War and Doom. And if he's in the
exactly.
backfield, it's hard to do it with. Definitely agree with that choice. Having him in the midfield is probably a much better pick with the Storm Guardians. And then you have the Scorpion, of course. So tell everybody about the Scorpion and why you use the Scorpion, and how you plan to kind of maneuver it and stuff on the
So
battlefield.
I love tough Eldar units. The Scorpion, it at one point it was crazy good because of the pivot rules. It's still pretty good. That's one thing that I like to do. So you deploy it backwards, right, with its
Hmm.
butt facing towards the enemy, and
Hmm.
then you move it up 12 inches, rotate it the opposite way for 2 inches, and then boom, you've just gotten like 4 extra inches of movement.
That's clever.
Because it's so long.
Right.
It's longer than 2 inches, so I can just jank out movement with the Scorpion.
Right.
So that is a big thing. It rarely dies. There's not a lot. You need like weight of dice in addition to high strength or like lethals. So some melee armies like Blood Angels, they could probably kill it. It doesn't die to a whole lot. Um, it, I mean, it's max damage. The Bright Lance, the Scorpion Pulsar. I mean, I think it's strength 18 -3, 5 damage with 6 shots, and it's twin linked.
Hmm.
Um, it just kills vehicles. Like pretty much, if I shoot it at a vehicle, I mean, it can kill a knight like in
Right.
one go, pretty much.
Yeah.
Especially with the Viper, that we get rid of that cover there.
Hmm.
Make sure they're taking 5s or 6s for their saves. It just kills vehicles right away.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really big is it blows up vehicles on a 4. So normally, I kind of try to do this thing where if the opponent has like either a group of vehicles, right, or they have like characters around the vehicle, like a lone op, you can kind of snipe out their lone op character by just blowing up their vehicles,
Yeah, that's pretty clever
which
as well.
is very useful. Another
Absolutely.
thing I've done a few times is you can shoot the Scorpion Pulsar at one thing and then shoot the Bright Lance at the other thing if you know the Bright Lance will, like, maybe they're taking a 6-up save on that Bright Lance.
Hmm.
You shoot the Scorpion Pulsar, you kill the tank, it blows up, it deals mortal wounds to the other tank you shot the Bright Lance with, and then the Bright Lance will do the 8 damage with the Fate Dice, right? And then,
Right.
I mean, you can just kill 2 tanks in one shot,
Yeah,
like
possibly
that way.
kill that tank as well. That's
It's a little
gnarly.
risky, but sometimes, like, if there's, like, multiple smaller tanks, that's what I try to do.
Right. Absolutely. Well,
A
I
lot of
know
board
that.
control as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, can you Overwatch with this thing, or is it
No,
Titanic?
you can't
Okay.
Overwatch. It's Titanic,
Okay.
but
That's
it's just really big. I use it a lot for movement block. I've got some Space Wolves players in my pod, and I
yeah.
just slap it right there. I mean, those are mounted; they can't move through walls.
Right.
Just movement block with it. They're not going to kill the Scorpion in like 2 turns of melee.
That's
Is
funny, man. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's
That's
8
so funny.
OC.
It's just a bunch of Space Wolf, Thunderwolf cavalry just knocking against Scorpion forever, just Wraith Bone holding to the end. That's great.
Yeah,
That's so
that, and
cool.
then you put the -1 to wound on it, and -1 to hit with the stratagem. It's really tough. It's
Yeah.
just so tough.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I do like the Scorpion. I'm a little intimidated by it myself. I have nothing I can use to proxy the Scorpion in my own games, but it is really cool, and I think its ability's great too, especially against, we were just talking about how many Astra Militarum and Imperial Guard players there are in this tournament. My God, I mean, a lot of them are bringing a ton of tanks,
Oh yeah,
and
it'll pick up at least a tank a turn,
yeah,
like
and
guaranteed.
it's gonna deal splash damage on a 4+ to everything around it. Just imagine just blowing up a Rogel or a, Lehman Russ or something like that tank commander and just splashing D6 mortals onto everything around it. I mean, multiple times a game. That's gonna be really good.
The only thing you do have to worry about the Scorpion, sometimes it's just to your advantage, but if it blows up, it is D6 plus 2.
Ah, yes.
I had it go in my advantage. Sometimes I play really aggressive with it because it's got a good tank shock at T11, right?
Right.
So if you move it into the opponent's, I mean, it's a one. You shouldn't bank on exploding, but it can do some serious damage to you or your opponent if it blows up. So just a little added bonus there. But
Yeah, that's also interesting as well in the late game for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, you got 2 units of Warp Spiders, which, I assume are for objectives. You got your Warwalker squads, they're, or Warwalker units, I should say, and they're really good with their scout and kind of, placing them in a position where they could either alpha strike you, your opponent, or they can kind of just play more defensively. How do you typically play with the Warwalkers? I'm curious.
So what I like to do with the Warwalkers is go for a turn one alpha strike on them if I
Hmm.
am getting first turn.
Good.
They got that 19-inch full move, and that's 4
Yeah.
Bright Lances. I can normally I look to take out enemy anti-tank so they can't kill my tanks, right?
Right.
So that's usually what I do. Also, they're tough. A lot of times opponents will just like shoot a bunch of shit at them and nothing will happen. Like if I put -1 to hit on it and then
Right.
I fate dice a 4, like sorry, you just wasted your entire shooting just not killing a warwalker because they're just so weirdly tough. Um,
Yeah, they are weirdly tough. It's kind of funny.
so I like to do that. Also, they're just general purpose, man. 110 points, they live. You can do secondaries with them. You can hold primaries with them. They really just do quite a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Warwalkers, and I use them the same way. If I get first turn and I see that there's enemy anti-tank and I'm running like triple Falcon or something like that, I'm going right for the jugular on that and trying to
Oh,
kill those things
absolutely.
right away. Like a lot of players will probably play more conservative with them, but I think what you have to understand about the Warwalker is it's not so many points to where it's not worth trying to throw it up there using your fate dice to blow up an enemy tank, right?
Yeah, it's
Like,
all right if they die.
yeah, it's okay if they die. They're there to die. They're going to eventually die probably anyway, even if you try to play them super safe. It's better to put your opponent on the back foot early than to sit back and just kind of take what your opponent gives you, you know?
Very true. You got to be aggressive.
Yeah. Okay, so that's your list. Anything else you want to say about it? Honestly, I think it's
Um,
awesome. I think it's one of the best lists of the entire group, to be honest. But
yeah, I love my list. I'm really glad this is not a big problem in this list, but it does like if there's like a lot of infantry, sometimes I struggle with that because I just need to keep my war spiders alive. If I can keep my war spiders alive, then the infantry is whatever. But
right,
if they go down, like say an opponent has those Aquilons, thank God the players in my group don't like they have like one squad of five or something, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, there's like a lot of indirect fire. People tend to target your warp spiders like right away, man.
right,
Um, Always
yeah,
frustrating for me,
yeah.
but they're really important. They need to stay alive.
I've had a similar issue when my opponents bring indirect. It's like the warp spiders always get attacked first. So I've sometimes just started bringing shroud runners instead because it's like warp spiders are so good, but they just die every game. Yeah, I love this list honestly, and what I have to say about it is, if you do go against an infantry heavy army like Gene Stealer Colt, I know they're freaking great right now. I know they're just
Yeah, I don't have them
slapping.
on my pod, but I do have another one of these Eldar players in my pod that is all infantry. So
Wow.
I'll point them out to you when we get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, speaking of, let's go on to the next list here. James Kelling is the next. Elf me? No, 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 no. Elf you. Kind of funny, but let's look at what he's got here. So he's got the Way Leaper, he's got the Avatar of Cain, Death Jester, Farseer, Fuegan, Illic, which is interesting, and Kahandra. So we have a standard loadout of characters in this list, except for Illic Nightspear. He's a little bit different. Now, my opinion on Illic is a little bit expensive. I have the same kind of opinion as you on it, I think. A little bit expensive. I've not found much success with him in Pariah Nexus in general, but still a decent character. He's the cheapest lone op in there, and he makes Rangers pretty effective. So he has that going for him. As for his battle line, you got a unit of Guardian Defenders, you got double Falcon, you got Rangers, Shroud Runners, Skyweavers, 2 units, Striking Scorpions, and looks like Swooping Hawks, Warwalkers, and that's it. So it looks like a pretty solid list in general. I would say this is more of like, this reminds me a lot of the list that we saw kind of before Pariah Nexus a little bit, you know?
Well, when I'm looking at this list, I'm wondering what is he going to put in his other Falcon? Because obviously one of
Right.
them's going to get Karandras and the Scorpions,
Hmm.
but what else will be going in the other Falcon? I wonder.
Yeah, I would
What else
assume,
needs the reroll to wounds?
just maybe Fuegan and Death
Like
Jester,
Death Jester?
right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what else he would put in there. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't necessarily think that Death Jester needs a Falcon, but it's a good bonus, if you're rerolling dev wounds. Yeah, interesting.
Um, yeah, the Skyweavers. I'm wondering if he has enough anti tank though.
Yeah, the one
Um,
thing I see is that Skyweavers, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit, or in the past couple weeks with my buddies, and I talked about it when I made that tier list. I think they're really good anti-tank half of the time. Half of the time, it's like a 50-50. It's kind of like a coin flip. You either roll your 4 pluses and they're great, or you don't and they're shit, and they're not going to do anything.
and the other
And
thing is that what if he plays into Tyranids or demons?
right,
He's just not going to be able to kill any of their things.
absolutely. And I think Skyweavers are really good into local metas or like metas that there's going to be a lot of vehicles in. But if you're going into something like Worlds and you're running 2 units of these, I think maybe the Haywire Cannons fall off against those matchups. You know,
I agree.
that's just what I'm seeing. But I mean, honestly, if you can roll those 6s, who cares? They're dev wounds, right?
Absolutely.
So, against certain targets. Shroud Runners I like a lot. I'm not sure there's much synergy with the other units, but there doesn't really have to be with Shroud Runners sometimes. I think
They're fine scoring
yeah,
units.
they're
I
fine by
avoid taking them
themselves.
if there's no synergy, but they don't. You don't need to have synergy to take them.
Yeah, sometimes I've found myself taking them without taking Wind Riders or anything like that, just because they have Scout. They're fairly durable. They're kind of like Shining Spears in that, you can score things pretty easily, like, Sabotage and stuff like that, which, you know, they're also -1 to hit via stealth. They're also, they also have a decent save and cover. They also have, 3 wounds apiece. So they're not
Yeah,
as,
5 of invols.
yeah, and 5 up invuls. They're not as squishy as you might think. But yeah, they're a really good unit as well. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this list.
It's really a Leviathan. It seems like a Leviathan Eldar list, honestly.
It does, and yeah,
I'm sure it'll perform well. It's. I mean, it's certainly a decent list. I'm hoping that he can get some good rolls with Karandras, I guess,
oh,
because
absolutely,
Karandras has done that. I play Karandras and a lot of Scorpions in my RTT, or no, my GT that I got the golden ticket from, and he actually did a lot of work. But I just thought I needed better, like tougher objective holders, so I
yeah,
dropped him. But
yeah.
he's quite good.
Oh yeah, he's really good. I mean, yeah, he just annihilates things. I mean, I've seen him just come out of a Falcon, run into a 6-man unit of 8 bound, and just
Yeah, he'll
wreck
pick him
them.
up.
Pick them up. Yeah, it's like, all right, pick them off the table. Like, that's 6 8 bound. That's a serious unit, but he'll pick them up easily. Okay, on to the next list here. We have Ludovic Stamler, and we have kind of a. I guess here it says his secondaries bring it down in an assassination. I don't know if that's actually what it is.
I'm
But
sure he's not taking fixed. I
yeah,
mean, he could be taking fixed depending on if he's playing like Tau or some shit. But
yeah, I don't think that's probably some sort of typo, or it looks like maybe it's just the
maybe he's a
app
battle
he's
scribe,
using.
or
Yeah,
yeah, it's
true.
probably the app.
Yeah, so he's got the old. It looks like what he's going to bring here is Avatar of Cain, big troop brick. I
Yeah,
don't think he's bringing the Wraith brick though, so he's just bringing a double brick, I guess. Autark on foot. Now this is cool because this is something I've been advocating for, and I think we've seen this a couple times in different lists going forward. We're not seeing as many way leapers. We're seeing more. Well, we are seeing way leapers, of course, but we're also seeing the foot tarks.
oh, the foot
And
arcs are definitely emerging. They're
yeah,
they're just as good, honestly.
yeah, absolutely. And 75 points, half the points of a way leaper with a Phoenix gem. Right, so he's got that. He's got the Farseer, which is going to be, of course, providing, better rolls for your Fate dice and, you know, Fortune for your Avatar of Cain. You got Guardian Defenders, and I'm guessing the Autarch just sticks with them.
He doesn't have Storm Guardians.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Unless they're later in the list, but I don't think so.
So then maybe he's running the Farseer by itself.
Yeah, solo dolo. Just hoping that there's no indirect. Which kind
Yeah,
of,
either that or the Autarch. He could.
yeah,
I
true.
think it's probably safer. Oh, honestly, both of them kind of need some protection.
Yeah,
But I think probably the Farseer is the better option there.
yeah. And yeah, I guess it would depend on the opponent as well. It depends what your opponent can pick up.
Absolutely, you can switch it up.
Yeah. Oh god, I just I've been playing with the Autarch on foot with Guardian Defenders over the past couple games, and it's been so fun just peeking out the Bright Lance, shooting, and then doing a free Phantasm every turn. It just feels so good to do that. It doesn't even like for me. It's not even if it's the most efficient thing to do. It's just fun. We also have 5 Dark Reapers, which, a lot of people don't like Dark Reapers nowadays, but they're still pretty decent. They fire off a decent amount of indirect shots, so against chaff,
I
cultists,
think they're a
stuff like that.
little expensive, but
Yeah.
they're still decent.
Yeah, I didn't agree with the points increase. I thought that was ridiculous, but, I mean, at the end of the day, what's 5 points? I don't think it's really that big of a deal if you're using them for chip damage and, wiping out chaff. You have a squad of 5 striking scorpions, of course. You have 2 units of 5 swooping hawks. You have the big troop, and you have warp spiders, and then of course we have the triple
Oh,
prism,
fire.
which is the first time we're seeing that.
Yeah, I love the triple prism. The funny thing is although I think the triple prism's great, like it's a little more expensive than the scorpion. So I think the scorpion is a better choice. But
I kind of agree with you. If you have a scorpion, I think it's probably better.
as far as like anti-tank, by the way, because
Yeah,
obviously they have the option to shoot their
dispersed.
anti-infantry, which is
Yeah,
gives them a lot more flexibility.
yeah. They're also more units, so later in the game you could do different things with
Scoring,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's like pros and cons there. But then you have the Viper, of course, which I think goes hand in hand with the Fire Prisms, especially nowadays where you have armies like Sisters who could just, pop Miracle Dice out of their ass and just block all of your stuff. So,
There's so many things of Armor of Contempt that I don't even think I could play an Eldar list without bringing a Viper, man.
yeah,
Like, cover plus the Armor of Contempt is ridiculous. Like, you can only get +1 to your save, man. You can't get
yep,
+2. I don't like that.
yep, absolutely. Every time I don't bring a Viper, I miss the Viper. So, I usually try to find a place for the Viper in my lists, unless I'm running something wacky and I'm there for the lulz. But yeah, this looks like a pretty solid list as well. It's got good scoring. It has, good toughness. You have the troop brick being able to support the Avatar of Cain, so you got that going on. You have the foot tark to give you really good CP generation and management. So yeah, I think this is a great list. What do you think about it in general?
I like the list, but I really wish he had a Storm Guardian squad instead of the Dark Reapers aren't quite the equivalent,
Right.
but I really wish he could have found a way to fit another Guardian squad in there so that he doesn't have one of his characters just chilling out in the open.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of a weakness. I guess maybe hide it.
Because you need both of those, right? You need the CP, especially for your Fire Prisms, and you need the Fate Dice to change.
Right.
So it's a little daunting.
See,
but other than that, I think it's a decent list.
Absolutely. I almost think he could kind of get away with dropping a Swooping Hawk, perhaps dropping the Reapers and replacing it with Storm Guardians and another Scorpion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that might be better.
Yeah. Or Ranger unit, right? And maybe if you have extra points, throw the Fate's Messenger or something on the Autarch.
Agreed.
Okay, now we have, of course,
I love this list.
4 Phoenix Lords list. Excellent.
I never thought I'd see Baharoth in a list here.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually think Baharoth might actually be a good pick. And I was talking about this the other day. Baharoth, and I think it's been mentioned on other Aeldari channels as well. I know Craftworld Eldar mentioned it a while back. But having a unit of 10 Swooping Hawks with Baha, I don't know if he has 10 Swooping Hawks in this list, but it's pretty good. Move, shoot, move is always a good thing, right? So
absolutely.
We have Assman, a Zerman, of course. We have an Autarch with Weeping Stones, which is interesting that he picked Weeping Stones. But, I mean, hey, if it works, it works. We have Baharoth, Death Jester, Fuegan, Illic, and Kahandras. And again, we see Illic Nightspear once more, which is,
He's got the 10 Ranger squad, too.
Oh, excellent. So we're going back to the very beginning of the edition.
Yeah, that was obnoxious, man.
Oh my god, with the excellent Phantasm. Oh,
yeah, you move block with them. They're so annoying, man.
Yeah. So we got Dire Avengers, of course, with a Zerman, because you gotta run Dire Avengers with him. They're really good in Overwatch. I actually think if he doesn't have a Farseer Skyrunner in this list, but I think a squad of 10 with a Zerman is still enough to pop a Killins when they come in. So you could just Overwatch them to death right away. And maybe just leave them with like one model so they can't insta-reinforce, which is stupid. They shouldn't be able to do that on top of it.
You shouldn't be able to use that on the Aquilans.
Yeah, absolutely. Rangers, 2 units of 5 Rangers. God, I know there's somebody in our Discord who will love this.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he'll love that. Then he has 2 units of Shroud Runners on top of it, so a bunch of, Ranger, kind of a Latox stuff. 2 units of Striking Scorpions, which also fit the theme.
There's the 10-man Hawk squad.
Oh yeah, there's the 10-man Hawks. So we got the 10-man Hawks. Again, I think if he had Guide in this list, if he was able to fit a Skyrunner in here, that would be just so brutal. But he just probably didn't have the points for that. 2 or 3 Warwalkers actually, and Warp Spiders. So tons of Aspect Warriors, tons of mobility, tons of Scout and Infiltrate, tons of reactive moves. I mean, this guy has some really powerful synergies in this army.
He has the Avatar in this list, right?
I believe he does, yes.
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. Never mind.
See, with this list is another thing is I just don't know if he has enough anti-tank. There are a lot of people running like 10, 20 tanks. Right. I don't know if there's enough anti-tank in this list, unfortunately.
Absolutely not. I think he's probably relying on
like Fugan and Prandras.
Yeah, and just pure lethals to just chew through vehicles, but I just don't think that gets the job done, personally. Right? I mean, he also... I don't know how I feel about the Autarch on foot with Weeping Stones because it's not like it's joined to anything. It's just kind of by himself.
Yeah, what is it gonna kill?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I don't know what the Weeping Stones play is. I mean,
I would have liked the other one, the Fate's Messenger,
yeah,
better.
I think the Fate's Messenger would be way better. Interesting. I mean, maybe that works for him. Maybe he can, kind of finagle that to get some extra fate dice. But then I'm thinking, like, what in your list really needs that many extra fate dice? I mean, you don't have the Avatar of Cain. You don't have, you know, Wraith Guard or anything like that. You don't have support weapons. It just doesn't make that much sense. But I love the list just from a, kind of,
Yeah, it's a very fun list. It's got
yeah,
a
it looks,
lot of infantry, a lot of good move blocking. He'll destroy well, he'll play very well into Space Marine lists. I can tell you that, and
oh,
infantry
absolutely.
lists.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of anti-infantry. I think this list is going to do very well against Gene Stealer Cult.
Oh,
I
definitely.
think this is like maybe that's what he was thinking. Like Gene Stealer Cult is doing so good right now. Maybe, maybe I take Baharoth and 10 Hawks. Maybe I take the Jester. Oh, that's why he doesn't have Fate's Messenger. It's because of the
Yeah, he
Jester.
has that on the Jester.
Yeah, I totally didn't even see that. So that
He
that
probably just
answers
had
that.
extra points that he just put on the
Right.
other.
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he's going to do very well into certain lists. I think obviously this list, like you said, will struggle into lists like Imperial Guard and struggle into things like maybe Custodes and stuff with
Yeah,
like really
knights,
high armor
stuff like
knights.
that.
Yeah, but I think for the most part, even Necrons, I think he's okay against Necrons just because of so many lethal hits, man. It's like those Catan shards are just not going to be able to stand up to it with 4+ armor saves and 4+ invul saves.
Yeah, weight of dice do really well against them.
Yeah, I think this list has some good play into those types of lists for sure.
The other thing I'd say is he has the Shroud Runners. Again, it's the issue of them not really synergizing with anything because,
Right.
like, I'm pretty sure the Hawks already get lethal hits, right?
They do. I think the Shroud Runners are mostly just synergizing with themselves.
That's fair.
Synergizing with themselves, maybe synergizing with Rangers a little bit. That's about it. That's all I can really see. But yeah, interesting list. Interesting list for sure. I'd love to see a game
Definitely.
played with this list. Just how he plays the game, would be interesting to see. Okay, now we have Matt Schumann. I hope I pronounced his last
Oh,
name
I
right.
love this list. I think this guy's Art of War
Yeah, this
player.
guy's a pretty popular Eldar player. I've seen a couple of his games throughout the edition. He usually runs some form of Wraith Knight. I've seen him use a Skothak Wraith Knight. I've seen him use triple monster. You got Avatar of Cain, Yvrain, or no, not Yvrain, Yinkarn, and the Skothak. I've seen him use those kind of lists. So yeah, he's an experienced player, pretty good. If we look at the list, of course, the Wayleaper, Phoenix Gem, standard there, Avatar of Cain, Farseer Skyrunner. No Farseer on foot.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing to not put the -1 on that Wraith Knight,
Right.
but
But
I guess he's
maybe
going for the rerolls the hits on the Wraith Knight.
right, which is good. It's powerful, especially with all the weapons a Wraith Knight has. But you don't have Fortune on Avatar of Cain either. Guardian Defenders, which I think is pretty standard with Avatar of Cain, more Fate dice. Backline kind of unit that's going to screen for you. Double Fire Prism, which is interesting. I think many people take the triple prism, but double Fire Prism's still good.
He
You have
probably won points for scoring, I'm assuming.
right, right. You have Shroud Runners, which are an interesting. They're good. I think Shroud Runners are pretty solid. I don't know how much synergy they have in the list, but they're pretty solid. We have Striking Scorpions, 2 units of them, which is kind of become the standard of Eldar infiltration. I've noticed either players go with double
Very useful to have
Scorpion
two of them.
or single Scorpion and Ranger, something like that. We have 2 units of Swooping Hawks, of course, for scoring. That's pretty standard as well among Eldar lists. We have a Warwalker, single Warwalker, which I don't think is bad at all. I think a single Warwalker is a decent pick. And we have the Wraith Knight, of course. And I
Yeah,
think this list is really hard hitting.
absolutely, super hard hitting.
I don't think the Wraith Knight's bad at primary either because he's tough, but we don't have that fortune. So I think
Yeah, he doesn't have the 4-up invul on it either.
right,
So it's a little worrying if he's a good player.
right.
So I'm assuming he's gonna fire and fade it pretty much every turn, right? To
Yeah.
keep it from dying. and getting shot because I mean it's 18 wounds. It is tough, but it can definitely still die to anti-tank.
Right.
But he does have his anti-tank covered with all these units
Yeah.
pretty strongly.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, maybe the pick of the Skyrunner is for mobility purposes, so it can keep up with the Wraith Knight and it can, keep up with the Avatar of Cain in the midboard. Maybe he was afraid that the Farseer on foot didn't quite do that well
That makes
enough.
sense.
But other than that, yeah, I think, on paper, the Farseer on foot seems like the better option, but in game, maybe the Farseer Skyrunner through, game testing and stuff was just the model he had to end up going with, right?
The other thing I'm a bit worried about this list is he has fire and fade, but he has the 2 units he needs to use them on.
Right.
So it's going to end up with either his Wraith Knight being exposed or
Fire
his
prisms.
Fire Prisms being exposed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit strange as well. Yeah, he's going to have to play it very carefully with the fire prisms to make sure that they're not shot off the board because
I've heard a lot of good things about him, so he'll
yeah.
probably.
Yeah, he's a good player. I've seen his games. A very technical player and usually doesn't lose by wide margins if he does lose. So, yeah, excited to see a Wraith Knight at Worlds for sure. Because I don't think the Wraith Knight's bad. A lot of people bag on the Wraith Knight. Oh, it's too expensive. If you compare it to Imperial Knights, it's nowhere near the power of Imperial Knights. And honestly, its weapons alone are so good that I don't think it has to in other ways. Like name an Imperial Knight or name a Chaos Knight for that matter, any kind of knight that has double strength 20 AP -4 dev wound cannons that do 2d6 mortals if you roll a devastating wound. You know what I mean?
Uh, I think the Volcano Cannon from the Dominus Knights might do something similar to
Interesting.
that, but it doesn't have 2 of them.
Yeah, right. I mean, it just has one. Is that a Forge World one, or is that just part of
No,
the
it's
normal
the
print?
it's the Dominus Knights, the big. Oh, you know what? There is a Forge World one that has double volcano cannons, the Porphyrion.
Yeah, but I haven't seen that played. Maybe I'm just, I haven't seen it played, but maybe it's because it's one of those models that's like either really hard to get or just way too expensive. So, who knows? I'll have to look that up. But yeah, I mean, I think the Wraith Knight's pretty good. I don't think it's
I
the
agree.
best model out there, but I think it's pretty good. It's solid. Okay, next we have Peter Elias or Elias, I should say, and we have the Autarch Wayleaper, of course, Avatar of Cain. We're seeing the Avatar of Cain in a lot of lists, of
So
course,
good.
because it's so freaking good. Yeah, I mean, when I was doing the tier list, I was like, this is obviously S tier all the way. I mean, it's such a good model. Death Jester, of course. We have the Farseer on foot to go with the Avatar of Cain, Fuegan, and Cahandras, which is standard. You usually see those two Phoenix Lords together. They're really beastly. We have Guardian Defenders for those extra Fate dice. We have double Falcon, 1 unit of Fire Dragons, probably 1 unit of Scorpions. This is a common Eldari build that we've seen
Yeah,
a
the
lot.
Scorpions and Karandras.
Yeah. Shadow Spectres, which is cool.
It's the
I
first
think,
time we've seen them.
yeah, I think they're still good. I mean, they have a unique damage profile. They have a move shoot move. I think the problem with them is they're just expensive and you can't spam them anymore because they're so expensive, right? Like using 3 units of them, I don't think is the play anymore because they're 115 points. And I think a lot of Eldar players have kind of moved away from them, but I think they're still good.
Yeah, they're definitely fine. I think at that
Yeah,
point, if you're trying to run 3, just run 3 Warp Spider squads for
right.
30 more points.
No, true.
It's going to be more damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Shadow Spectres might be a tech into maybe things like Gene Stealer Cult with big blobs of acolytes because they can do the blast, right? So they
Yeah,
can
they
give
can
just
pick those up.
a ton of attacks. And Warp Spiders, they're really good, but they probably still won't be able to pick up a full unit of acolytes just because
Yeah, they also
66.
have flamethrowers. The
Right.
acolytes, I think the acolytes are they usually run them with flamethrowers, right? So
Yeah.
you'd have to position them in a way where like only one flamethrower could overwatch you or something like that.
hmm Yeah, so I think the Shadow Spectres at the 18-inch range probably just a little better into that kind of army. And I think because they're doing so well, you are going to see people trying to tech a little bit, have some sort of tech piece into Gene Stealer Cult because, or else they're just going to run away with the tournament, right?
Oh, definitely, they're super strong.
Yeah, you got Skyweavers, which is pretty good, right? Again, just one unit of them though, so you're not overcommitting into them. You're not
I like that.
overcommitting into
I
the
like that.
Haywire. Yeah, I think they're a good tech piece into things like knights. You can on average do about 6 to 9 devastating wounds against a knight, and I think that's a great play. I mean, that almost kills a baby knight, and it does 1/3 of the health at least of the bigger knights. So that's pretty decent. You got Striking Scorpions, 2 units of them, one with Kahandras, obviously, and one just infiltrating, so you have some coverage against other infiltrators, and you have a single support weapon, which I haven't seen this in a while, but I did see somebody in a recent GT run a single support weapon and actually did pretty good. And it was just there to kind of pop transports, put an opponent on the back foot, kind of give your opponent something to worry about, but not invest too heavily into it where it's your whole strategy, right? And that's
I
something,
agree because they can be so swingy. Like
they
the
can.
problem I have is, you have maybe you get 1 shot or 2 shots, and then you're gonna miss one of them because you're rolling on 4s.
Right,
And then you still have to wound. You might not get the dev wound if you're using the fate dice for the dev wound. You're not using the fate dice for the damage.
right.
So it's super swingy.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you swing upwardsly, then it's going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah,
So
it's potentially really good, and I think that's why it's included. I think it's a mind fuck. It's definitely a mind fuck. Like, okay, this is right here. It's in a corner of a ruin. You can't see it. It's going to be able to shoot. It has a 27-inch threat range with a 3-inch movement. Like, are you willing to take the risk? It's
the other problem I found with using these is that they don't trade at all into other indirect fire, right? So
Yeah.
like if your opponent has indirect fire, then they can just kill this. It's
Right.
not tough at all.
Right. Yeah, so if you're running like 2 or 3 of them, it's just like they're dead. Like
Yeah.
Imperial Guard basilisks are kind of popular. I don't know how popular they are now, but at least when I was running support weapons a lot, anytime I go
You'll see
against my
like
Imperial Guard
mortars
buddy,
at
yeah.
least. I don't think you'll see many basilisks, but and then you got like sisters with exorcists and shit.
Oh
So
yeah, the exorcists are definitely gonna kill these guys, dude. Definitely. You got swooping hawks and warp spiders to bring out to round out the list. So you have a good deal of scoring units that can score for you. You have really powerful, loaded up Falcons. You have your Guardian Defenders. You have your Avatar of Cain. This seems more like of a standard Eldar build, honestly.
yeah. His scoring units are very multi-purpose, which I like.
Right.
Like Rangers aren't just scoring; they don't really do anything, right? But his scoring units, they can potentially do damage, or they can score, and he won't be missing out on too much.
Right. Right. Which is kind of what I like because you're diversifying your scoring choices, making it so that if there's a bad matchup for Swooping Hawks, you have it covered with another unit. So that is pretty good. Okay, next list we have Riley Tremblay.
This is the guy that I have in my pod.
Oh, cool. Have you played games against him?
No.
Oh, no.
He's in Canada.
Oh, interesting.
Across the sea.
Okay, so we have Yvrain. So he's running, obviously, the, Ynnari list
That's
here.
your brick. Yep.
Yep. We have Wave Serpent, Dark Reapers, Dark Reapers, Dark Reapers. We have triple Dark Reapers, ladies and gentlemen. So this is an interesting thing. I've seen this in Ynnari before, where you're trying to just max out the number of units you have in your army. You have 3 units of Dark Reapers. You have 1 unit of Howling Banshees, which I think, again, we were talking about that earlier, being a very good pick.
Very
Striking
cool.
Scorpions, 2 units of those. Looks like 2 units of Swooping Hawks. We have the big troop, which Yvrain is going to be in. Interesting, we don't see the Vizark, but again, maybe he doesn't need fights first with those Howling Banshees. And then we have 2 units of Warp Spiders to round out the Aeldari, and then, of course, for the allied units, we have Cobalite Warriors, Lilith, 3 units of Scourges,
And then he's got
with all Haywire. Oh, but interesting.
it's 1 Dark Lance
1
and
Dark
3
Lance.
Haywires. It's a very
Oh.
popular thing. You actually if you look to the right, you'll see the other list has the exact same thing.
Interesting.
Very popular for Drukari.
Absolutely. And I think especially for Ynnari, that's really good because you can have the Dark Lance for the reroll to hit, which makes the Dark
Yeah.
Lance more efficient. And then you have the Drukari Haywire Blasters, which each have 2 attacks apiece. So you're averaging about probably 3 to 6 devastating wounds on vehicles with those.
Yeah, the thing is the Scourges hit on 4s,
Right.
so
So you kind of need...
it's a little swingy.
Yeah, you kind of need I mean, there's no guide in this list, but guide would have helped
Oh,
with the
definitely.
yeah, Venom and witches, right? So you got to have the witches with Lilith because she's just
So I've already
really
thought
good.
about this list a lot because there's definitely a chance I play into him, right?
Hmm.
So with he's got that. I think what his strategy is, you've got the Lilith Hesperex Witch Brick, and so they have fights first. That's why he doesn't
Right,
have the Dizark.
right.
Because what you can do, right, is run the troop and the witch brick together. If they charge the troops, which you want to do to get rid of their +1 to wound, then you can just heroic intervene with Lilith,
Hmm.
and Lilith will kill most infantry units.
Yeah,
Like her
she's really
squad will
powerful.
just shred them. If it's like Space Marines, they'll just die.
Yeah, that's what I've
The only
noticed.
thing he's got to worry about is like monsters charging.
Right, or a scorpion.
Yeah, yeah, or a scorpion, which is actually something I thought about. So
I'm
yeah,
sorry. I'm sorry, man. It just makes me laugh every time I just imagine you deploying that shit backwards and then charging in ass
yeah, I
first.
drifted in. Yeah, I do.
So
I
funny.
drifted in there.
So funny. Warhammer is just such a great game, honestly. Interesting list. I really like the fact that he included Lilith and the witches. Lilith and her bitches, and then he has the triple Dark Reaper, which is really good into stuff. Like, honestly, even Gene Stealer Cold. I mean, Dark Reapers are really good into Gene Stealer Cold. I was doing some math the other
Oh,
day.
definitely.
Oh my god, the amount of indirect can just wipe out whole units of acolytes, which is awesome.
In one go, yeah.
Yep. And then, and the good thing about the three Dark Reaper units is he has the Tempest launchers, and he does enough damage to the Cult acolytes that he doesn't quite kill every model in the unit, because then of course it could just return to the battlefield, right?
Yeah, you want to leave
So
him like one.
yeah, he leaves them at like 2, 3 models maybe, and this all right, have fun.
The
Interesting
problem
list.
is though, you don't always like. Sometimes I like to leave the mining lasers. You don't want to let those mining lasers live.
Yeah, they hit pretty
I don't.
hard.
I don't really. They're strong.
It's funny that Gene Stealer Colt has like some of the worst crappy infantry in the game, but they have some of the strongest weapons in the unit. It's like,
Yeah, they're just like random dudes. Why do they
yeah,
have such strong weapons?
right. Like I've always wondered that, like how is this stronger than a melt-a-gun? Like just some guy with some mining tool. It's like, God, I don't know if you've played this game, but Starfield. I remember playing Starfield when it came out, and like the mining tool in that game was more powerful than any weapon I've ever picked up. And it was like, why? Why is this a thing? Okay. Next list is Tim.
It's a very similar list to the list
Yeah,
we just
Tim
saw.
Dietlitz, I think it's pronounced. So Ynnari list, yeah, it looks very similar, right? Yvrain, it does have the Vizark in this list though. Triple Dark Reaper, same build. Howling Banshees, 2 units of those instead of 1 unit. 2 units of Striking Scorpions. 2 units of Swooping Hawks. He's got the Troop. He's got 2 units of Warp Spiders, or 3 units actually. Wow. And for
Three.
allied units, yeah, I know, big drop on those Warp Spiders. And then you have Coplite Warriors, 3 Scourges, same kind of loadout there, and then you have the Venom. I've actually seen this guy play as well with his Ynnari in tournament play. So I've seen some of his tournament games on stream, either Tabletop Live or War Games Live or something like that. But yeah, I mean, solid list. It has a lot for the enemy to deal with. I think it has a lot of kind of anti-infantry power. I think it's a little bit
I
low on
like
the
this list better
anti-tank,
than the
but
other one. I think
yeah,
they're both low on anti-tank.
yeah,
Which is scourges since they hit on fours, you're gonna want to move them every turn.
right.
They're really swingy.
They are.
It's a little bit worrying that you like will like honestly. He does have the 3 warp spiders to make up for it, so like whatever damage you do to a tank, you can just pick it up with like warp spider dev wounds.
Right.
Which is why I like this list more than the other one.
Hmm.
But yeah, sometimes like if you just roll bad, like those scourges won't do the haywires won't do that much damage,
Yeah,
which
I've
is
actually
disappointing.
had bad luck with Scourges myself. Just firing into anything, like even light tanks like Falcons, just not doing shit. You know, like I had a game against a buddy on Tabletop Simulator, where I moved up some Scourges, shot some Haywires, and 2 units of Haywires into a Falcon. Nothing. I did like 6 wounds to it. I was like, man, it
I tend
feels
to
bad.
prefer the Ravagers instead of Scourges when I'm playing
Yeah,
Ynnari.
yeah. Actually, I would agree with you. I think that the two rerolls you get with Ynnari, the reroll that
Yeah,
the
they're more
Ravager gets, and
consistent.
yeah, they're a little bit better. I think, even though there's technically less shots. Okay, so that's his list, and then the last list
Yeah,
is
the list over there is like
interesting.
I don't know. He's a Chinese player. I don't
Hmm.
know. Maybe he didn't format it right. I'm maybe he is running mono Quins. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming he didn't format his list right because it says that in BCP too.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, it doesn't look formatted correctly, but that would be interesting if he did run Monoquins.
I'd love to
Actually,
see that. Yeah,
I actually think that I heard rumors about somebody running Monoquin, so I think that it is this guy because it definitely looks like it. Um, but let's go ahead and take a look at the Zdar list first, and he has Z Martin has the Wayleaper, Phoenix Gem, Avatar of Cain, Death Jester, Farseer, Fuegan, Jane Zar, which is a cool pick. I like that.
I haven't seen
Cahandras,
that
and
one yet
Yvrain.
either.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jane Zar is good. Free heroic intervention. She makes Banshees hit harder. She can actually just be run solo too. I'm not sure if this guy is bringing Banshees or not, but she can be run solo and be fairly effective. She's like kind of like a more durable solitaire, like if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like, and it does a little bit less damage, obviously, but is more durable and has a range attack and cheaper. You have your
he's
Vrain.
got the Void Reavers.
Yeah, Void Reavers, man. I was glad to see these. I think they're actually pretty good. They have Scout 7. You know, they can scout up the battlefield. They can perform objectives early on in the game. They can trade a little bit effectively because they're so cheap. They're 60 points. I think they're pretty good. You have Storm Guardians in the list, which are also one of my favorite units in the index. You have Triple Falcon. So this is a Triple Falcon list, which is a list I like to run. I like to run Triple Falcon myself. You do have Howling Banshees, so what I'm thinking is one of the Falcons has Howling Banshees
He'll
in it.
probably get the power. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
one of
agree.
them has Fire Dragons, one of them has Scorpions. You got Rangers, Striking Scorpions, and that's pretty much it. So you got the 2 units of Striking Scorpions, 1 unit being Infiltrators, 1 unit being in the Falcon. I think this is a pretty solid list. I think it's, pretty standard Triple Falcon list. There's some variations, of course, like, in my Triple Falcon list, I use 2 units of Dragons and 1 unit of Scorpions. But this looks pretty good to me. I'm thinking Yvrain is interestingly in.
There's no troops in that, right? It would have to
I
be the
don't
Void
think so.
Reavers
Yeah.
or the Storm Guardians, possibly. I guess regenerating Storm Guardians could be annoying.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think she's in Storm Guardians. Really interesting pick there because I mean I
Yeah, I've
wouldn't
never
think
seen
that.
that before.
Yeah, I've literally never even thought of it. But I gives them feel no pain, which is good. They have a 5+ invul save built in. I think the only weakness there is that obviously if it gets charged by anything significant, they're going to be dead. You know.
Yeah,
But against shooting, it's really durable, especially if you can hide them well. So yeah, this is an interesting list. I think it's cool.
I'm worried. So first of all, he has the same deal where the Farseer's not in a
Yeah.
like a squad, right? And then there's not a lot of objective scoring in this list.
Yeah, there's really not. He's going to have to rely on off things to score, like Death Jester, stuff like that. He's going to hope that he, scores things like, draws things like Cleanse,
Yeah,
stuff that requires him to take objectives and to, that kind of stuff. He's
no
not going to,
actions.
yeah, action type objectives are going to be pretty bad for him. But yeah, I mean, in a pinch, I guess the Falcons can do something, but
Yeah, and then
it's
again,
tough.
not a lot of anti-tank. The Falcon, relying on the
Yeah.
Falcons. I don't think he has a bright lance. The pulse lasers are not great into heavy tanks, though.
No, they're not.
Unfortunately,
They're more of a light tank or Terminator kind of killer.
yeah.
But
I
yeah,
love the Void Reavers, though. I was very on edge about taking 2 squads of those instead of a Warwalker because I had 10 extra points on my list. I actually even bought a squad of them, and then at the last second, I was like, "Nah, I'm not running them. I
yeah.
like the Warwalker better."
I think the Warwalker is generally just probably the better pick into most matchups. But yeah, the Corsairs are really good because they can also like do multiple kind of things. So
Yeah,
yeah.
they're multi-role.
they're really cool. I like the list. I think Yad is a little bit weak on Inte Tank though. I think that's going to be a problem, against certain lists. And then we have the last list, Zenyan. Yeah, again, I don't know.
You can see he has a Shadow Seer,
Yeah,
which is surprising because you were just hating on it.
I hate the Shadow Seer. Maybe he found a way to do well with it. I mean,
I did actually think about running the Shadow Seer by itself just to advance and charge something and tie it in combat for
oh
a
my
turn.
god, I didn't even think of
Like
that.
a tank?
Yeah, just run it by itself, right? Because it doesn't do anything for the troop. So
No,
why
nothing
not
at all.
just why not just run it on its own? That's
Yeah, just
hilarious. Yeah,
and it's cheaper than the Banshee squat,
right,
so it can fulfill like if that's your goal, right?
right, absolutely,
It's not very tough, but I don't think like a Lehman Russ in combat's gonna kill it. So
definitely not. And it could just be there and just be annoying. Interesting. So yeah, maybe we cracked the code on the Shadow Seer. It makes troops worse, but actually by itself, it's not bad.
yeah,
That's funny. That's interesting.
too bad we can't see this full list though, because I'd love to see what he's running for Harlequins.
I know it's sad. Hopefully, maybe he'll see this and reach out.
Let me actually look on BCP and see if it's changed.
Okay, perfect.
Because I don't think it is, but I don't understand how the GW people didn't run by this and tell him to change his list. But this is the player from China, so I don't know. Like maybe he had visa problems or like doesn't have great English for reading, right? Because that was actually a big problem since I'm representing Japan. There's not a lot of Japanese players that can speak English, like enough to play the game, right?
Yeah.
Japan actually, despite popular belief, is pretty bad at English. So, in a lot of the tournaments we have, there is like a separate circuit in Japan where you just play all in Japanese. And then we get a lot of like a decent amount of those players coming, and then in basic English, it's fine. We both understand the rules. There's not a lot of differences, but sometimes it's a little tough, so we have translators there. But yeah, that's why there's not a lot of. We don't have a Japanese team yet. I know we're trying to get a team tournament, like for the Team World's team tournament thing going. But again, it's going to be a lot of like foreigners playing on that team and a few Japanese people. I think we're going to go like 4-4 or something because there's just not enough Japanese players that are good and speak English.
Right,
so
right. Yeah, that's always a challenge trying to, find enough players to actually come together and be effective. I tried my hand at it a while back, putting together a team in our local area, and it just didn't go well.
team tournaments are fun though. I enjoy them.
Yeah, it was fun, but yeah, I was jumping from table to table trying to see what everyone was doing and trying to help people in between games, and it was shit. It ended up being terrible. And the players ended up not even having fun with it, so I was like,
that's too bad.
Yeah, it was, but I don't know. Back in the day when I was playing with another group, they were a little bit different than the group I'm playing with now. They were less interested in competitive play. They were more interested in just, trying to just play Warhammer casually, your local game store. So, they kind of got hyped up for this team tournament, and we signed up, and then we realized very quickly, like, okay,
the other teams are more competitive.
Right, they're way more competitive, and I was really the only player who had tournament experience in the group, so so it ended up being a shit show. But yeah, it was fun. One of my buddies was so sad. He got tabled in like 3 games.
That's not a fun time.
Yeah, he was so sad, man. But it is what it is. If you're putting together that team and you're kind of like, the head of it, I think that's a great thing.
I'm not the head. I know there are a lot of other guys that there's like a tournament organizer. He doesn't really play, but he likes organizing. He's into the competitive scene, but not for playing.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing for that is actually sponsorships, because like flights from Japan are not cheap. Like even for this one, I got a decent amount of prize money, but not enough to pay for everything. So I'm kind of doing some of it on my own. But yeah, that's a big thing is that they like paying plane tickets for like 10, 12 people is kind of tough.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. The expenses are very, very high.
Yeah. But I'm loving these worlds lists, man. I think we saw pretty much every single epic character in the Eldar Codex except for Uriel. Oh,
Yeah,
and Mugen. Sorry, sorry, Mugen.
yeah. He's Ivan Rise. He's a little bit
He's
terrible.
not good. Yeah,
I mean,
unfortunately.
unfortunately, there's just no real role for him. It's like if you, excuse me, if you look at him, it's kind of like, yeah, he's cool, but does he do better than a Death Jester for the same?
No.
No, it's not even. It's night and day. You know, it's night and day. So unfortunately, but man, I really like these lists. I'm really excited for Worlds. I can't wait for the tournament. I'm going to be trying to watch it as much as I can in between my work and stuff like that. You know, probably give my students something to do real quick. Just say, hey, you know, take this test. It's like, yeah,
So you can watch some Warhammer. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm watching Warhammer on my computer. You know, um, but excuse me, sorry. I've had this cough for the last few weeks, and it's been a little bit weird. But anyway, Hayden, thank you for joining. Really appreciate you coming on talking about the list. Is there any closing remarks you want to make about the tournament or anything relating to it?
I can say I'm really excited. This will be my first time playing in like outside of Japan in quite a long time, so I'm quite excited. It'll be fun. I just love seeing all the lists, and like I was kind of expecting to see like a lot of cookie cutter lists, right? But that's
Mm,
just not the case. Even among the other armies, there's a lot of diversity, which is really cool. And I guess that's what you get when you get a lot of people coming from different countries. Like I know in my GT that I played, I think like 60% of the players just played Thousand Suns.
oh
It was
wow.
just like it was kind of frustrating.
Yeah,
But
I can see how frustrating that would
it's
be.
good to see that there's a good spread.
Yeah,
And it'll be fun even if I don't do well. I'm hoping to do well,
I think you're
but
gonna do well, man. I don't think many people are expecting the
I
Scorpion.
don't think anybody's expecting the
Yeah,
Scorpion, man.
I think you're gonna do well. I think it's gonna throw some people off.
I
All
hope
right,
so.
man. Well, it's been great. Thank you for joining, and for all you guys out there listening, thank you so much for continuing to support the channel and have faith in the Eldari. Really appreciate you guys kind of listening in. If you do want to help support the channel, I have free trials on my Patreon activated. It doesn't cost you a thing to join. Obviously you just have to cancel it before, you're auto charged, but it'll grant you permanent access to our Discord community. You can talk to people like Hayden, you can talk to people like me who, really love talking about the hobby, about, painting, playing, building, all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave the link for that in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.